Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Bits and Shits. I'm Chitz, joined, of course, as always, by Reva. Today, we're going to be talking about a very special contest that's coming up on Chaos Dwarfs Online, but also more broadly, going to be widening that out to talk about all things standard bearer. So it's Flag Day. Happy Flag Day to those people who live in a country that celebrates Flag Day. I didn't know it was Flag Day. Reva had to tell me. But this season of Golden Hat is going to be very special for a lot of different reasons. But just before we dive into what's coming up and what the theme of the contest is and what the prizes are and all of that stuff, just in case you've never experienced Golden Hat before, Golden Hat is a piece of forum culture on Chaos Dwarfs Online, going back all the way to the founding of the forum in 2007. A time when neither Jared nor I were active, or indeed really probably playing Chaos Dwarfs at all. I wasn't even in the hobby in 2007, and many of you guys will have been in high school. But really, the joy of Golden Hat is it brings together Chaos Dwarf hobbyists, many of whom know each other, many of whom don't, into one place to pour their heart and soul into a project by a date and then come together and vote about it and decide what the best one is. And there is pretty much always a contest going on Chaos Dwarfs Online, and there are always real valuable prizes that are up for grabs for the winners of those contests. Although bragging rights is its own reward, it's well worth entering your latest projects, no matter what your feelings, what your confidence level is. But obviously, every contest has a theme. The theme for this next contest that's coming up is standard bearers. So, Reva, you have the enviable task of being the master of contests on CDO these days. Did you want to give us just your kind of perspective, the philosophy of the Golden Hat, and what you're excited about for this contest?
Certainly. Yeah, and just for historical purposes, I came into the forum around Golden Hat 32, looking back through the Golden Hat gallery. That was Chaos Dwarf Warriors, my first ever post on the forum. So already well beyond the majority of the contests, but in the last 10 contests leading up now to 43, scarcely missed a contest, and it's really just a staple of the forum. Everybody really gets brought together, I feel like, and yeah, it's just there's something about it, especially the Golden Hat. And we do have our other artisans contests, which are more focused around 2D art, conversion work, sculpting, and other kind of miscellaneous pursuits. But the Golden Hat really is a staple of the forum, and I think it really goes to show how consistent it's been for going on 2 decades, which is and potentially earlier than that in earlier incarnations of the forum. So just been here for quite some time, and it's credit to Admiral for keeping the fire alive for so long before I kind of stepped in to run these contests. So the special thing to announce on this contest specifically is we have a new sponsor. That is Red Bard Games. Red Bard is a company that I've purchased from through Kickstarter twice now. Really had great experiences there, which is not always the case with Kickstarters. Lamentably, some in Chaos Dwarfs Online's past. But Red Bard has, I would say, not explicit Chaos Dwarfs, but I'd say a wealth that can be used for a Chaos Dwarf collector. And even what got me into it was not Chaos Dwarfs at all, but a offshoot of Ogres, which I just couldn't pass them up. So they're just such fun, characterful. They are 3D printed, but they're very much in the old school style. And I ended up picking up probably 12 or so, a couple units of Ogres to run as like offshoot mercenaries for Chaos Dwarfs. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's something you can run in old world lists these days. So
Listen, if anyone tries to make you follow the old world rules on allies, you're gaming with the wrong type of person. But yes, they've just been introduced as Badlands Ogres as a unit that's recruitable mainly for greenskins at the moment. But I think the truth is, like, the more time passes, the more people are going to realize it's more fun to have that kind of stuff on the battlefield, isn't it?
So, I guess we'll quick run down the prizes for this contest. The top prize will be directly from Red Bard, a €50 voucher for the web store, which is very generous. I think it's very exciting that we have that on the gold spot. So that'll be a good chunk towards any of the items on the web store, including some of the bigger war machines that he's got. Silver will be a unit of 5 boar riders. These are more traditionally vanilla dwarf boar riders, but I think they kind of toe the line where, depending on how you paint them, they could certainly fall in line in Chaos Dwarf ranks. That'll be silver. The bronze and 1 random draw will be a split of the War Colors gift cards that we always have in our golden hats. So thank you to War Colors for being an ongoing sponsor there. And I know we have plenty of people on the forum who now use their paints. But yeah, also worth mentioning, for anybody who mistakenly feels like they don't have a chance to win, I'll say the voting is always very close, regardless of what people think. But we will have 2 random draws, one being €10 of paint, and then the last random draw being one of Red Bard's ogres that I got in one of the Kickstarter bundles. So that's pretty much the rundown.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth saying, when we say sponsor, like, that's it, right? This is people who offer prizes. I've been a prize sponsor in the past when I had too many Horns of Hashut. And anyone can just direct message Reva or any of the admins or mods on Discord or Discourse. If you've got something that you want to share, or even something that you want to promote, and you're willing to put your money where your mouth is in terms of providing that thing as a prize, then we would love to have you, because the Golden Hat, there's always something to get, and I think that's one of the things that has kept the contest so successful for such a long time, right? All the way back to 2007 is, paint is a meaningful prize for any hobbyist, and War Colors have been offering us that forever. But then you add into that, all these different miniatures ranges and all the different personalities in the forum who are willing to offer something up, and it really means that every single time there's a bit of spice. And then, yeah, I agree. The rules of the Golden Hat are quite clear. No one's allowed to post their work in progress. And as a result of that, it's blind voting. Even if, some users are quite close friends of one another. I've observed this firsthand because all of the Brazen guys except me enter pretty much every contest. And they have never shared their works in progress with each other. Because it's just a gentleman's agreement thing, really. And it does keep the voting quite clean. And it is we get people who we've never spoken to before podiuming on contests, winning prizes. And actually, occasionally we get people who drop in, win a prize, and then we never speak to them again, which, you're more than welcome to do if you're that good, right? But I think this thing with Red Bard is really interesting, because Red Bard is one of these brands alongside, I compare them to like Old School Miniatures or Satyr Art Studios. This is a miniature designer who's like, the 80s were amazing, and the early 90s were the peak of Warhammer aesthetics, and I just want to stay in that era forever. And as a result, like, he's cranked out this great range of stuff. And I know, Reva, you've entered some paint jobs on some of his stuff in the past. And I mean, we'll talk about a little bit of it just to give you a sense of flavor of what you can get for that €50 gift voucher. But just for context, right? A regiment of 5 like unique sculpt cavalry is like €35 on his store. So immediately you can fit that into the €50 and have more than enough left over to get, the flamethrower, for instance, or like two sets of crossbowmen, or like all sorts of things that he's got. But really, I think, and Reva, you know more about this because you've worked with the kits, whereas I haven't. His war machines are the things that are really like unique and really stand out in that dwarf range, aren't they?
Yeah, and his last Kickstarter, I pretty much pledged exclusively for that range. Had a lot of fun with it in one of the last golden hats, and yeah, they're fun kits to work with. I did like minor kit bashing with them, but honestly, the blimp I just pretty much painted it straight up, which is something I'd say pretty rare for me. But yeah, really enjoyed working with them. Do want to say they are all 3D prints. Quality's always been there. Yeah,
You can just tell from his website paint jobs, right? Like it could not be less relevant that these are printed. Like they're beautiful. And I think from that perspective, they're unique, and you can buy them in solid form. I think you can also buy STLs. I don't know if you can buy everything in STL, but I know that he does sell STLs as well.
yeah, yeah. There's a
And
selection. Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely like some of his stuff is available on STL, especially some of his like dungeon props and things like that. So it's not the dwarf range and stuff like that. And frankly, like when you look at how fun the minis are, I think you'll find they're very much worthwhile. Um, so yeah, that's Red Bard, and I think that's quite exciting because seeing more of these Red Bard war machines is going to be exciting on the forum, and I think whoever wins is probably going to come back around and show us what they've spent their voucher on. I wouldn't be surprised. That's extremely common thing on CDO. But yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I also think that the joy of this particular contest is standard bearers, right? As a concept, it's 1 minute. It's 1 minute. Now, you know, we're going to talk a lot about how you can make a distinctive one without spending 100 hours doing some Juan Diaz Golden Demon paint job. And that's not usually what wins CDO contests anyway. What wins CDO contests is something that is cool, right? And if you get the Chaos Dwarf aesthetic of whatever era, you'll know what cool is to the Chaos Dwarf fan. And from that perspective, we're going to talk about lots of different options for what your banner could look like today. But the joy of having it be a standard bearer is you could knock that out really quickly and cleanly if you have a decent concept for it. And, you know, you don't need to do a whole regiment. You don't need to do some giant 200 millimeter base. It's one fella, but it's also one of the fellas in your army that I think people are going to be looking at the most closely. So it's quite nice to put that extra bit of effort into a standard bearer because obviously, you know, they have this extremely visible role on the tabletop that you get to kind of draw eyes to your hard work in a way that is quite satisfying for a hero miniature. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone does and makes with it. So you should definitely enter, and if you've never entered before, just DM anyone, post on general chat on the Discord server or whatever, and the admins and mods will help you. But it's super easy. All you do is pay attention to the threads and then send your pictures to the account when it's deadline time. And the deadline is usually pretty flexible. Is that correct, Reva?
yeah. It's definitely flexible. We have a history of taking into account if people have some extenuating circumstances, but it'll be probably about 10 weeks or so time frame in total. And then if anybody needs any relaxation on that, they can just reach out to me. But yeah, it's usually a pretty long window, and especially where this, like you said, it's working on a single model. I think it should be pretty reasonable and give people time to still enjoy their summer and do things that normally take them away from the forum. So yeah, we'll try and post reminders in the Discord channel and on the forum, keep people coming back. But yeah, I think there should be plenty of time to get your model done, and like you said, put a little bit of extra effort into a good focal piece for your army. I think that's probably as good a time as any to run down some. We've been trawling through the forum in the last couple of days to find a selection of what KSRP Online members have painted up for their banners, and I think we have a pretty wide variety. And this some of these go back to contests in the 2007 era. Some of these are recent, current members, and yeah, kind of everything in between. So Yeah, I guess I'll start it off with a few that I wanted to bring up. 1 second, let me just make sure
There
I
is
have
some
the
epic
names
baby
right.
yelling going on right now.
Hell yeah, we're leaving that in. Okay, we'll start off with the first one, and this is an old forum participant, Wilmark. I believe he's actually still around on CDO. This banner I pulled up, couldn't resist. It's got just such the hair metal look to it. I
It's
believe,
great.
yeah, that's an old banner sculpt, isn't it? I recognize it from either Wars of Chaos or Beastmen or something, but the banner itself, I believe, is a bit, and he's just gone to town with the freehand.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Warriors of Chaos banner with the Beastman head stick going through it. But really, this is a painter sitting down and saying, "I'm gonna make an 80s as fuck hair metal Chaos Dwarf using predominantly modern Warriors of Chaos components on a dwarf figure." Right? Like if you look at that helmet, that's a Warrior of Chaos plastic helmet, for instance, and this is from that era of I'm going to take what you give me, GW, and I'm going to turn it into a beautiful Chaos Dwarf. Look at that banner. That is incredible.
Yeah, that style of skull is just all over 80s ranges, and I've certainly I tried to paint a few in my day, but this is a fantastic Chaos Dwarf version, and really good work on the flames as well. The always like lava or flames dripping from the mouth of a skull is always really hard to go wrong with that. We'll keep moving on here. The next one is by Clam, and I believe this was a medalist in the first Golden Hat Standard Bears, if I'm not mistaken. And that was, I think, the Golden Hat 5. This is just another fun take, kind of a similar idea. I think that's an old Warriors of Chaos bit or something equivalent. Gone and made some fun modifications to it with the Hashut rune on the top inside the Broken Chaos Star. But yeah, done a fun kind of like line art, Castorf skull and beard. Again, yeah, the skull thing, tried and true. Done some good conversion work on the model itself. It looks like some good fun sculpting on the beard. But yeah, great model. Just kind of another iconic part of an era, I feel like. But really like the paint scheme too.
Yeah, there's something nice about how washed out the monochrome nature of the banner is, right? Like it's quite scary. And then you've also got, the Hashut rune at the top. He's done some extensive green stuff work to make this happen, but the core bit itself is a really lovely, I think that banner is metal, which is always a bit of a bitch with banners, but that's a story for another day. And yeah, I think that's not the last 8-pointed star that's been kit bashed that we're going to see in this in this round of reviews, is it? Let's face it. But yeah, love it.
Yeah, and I like the difference here between this and the last one, where you can do Chaos Dwarfs in this kind of monochrome style. This is almost like a Nurgly background scheme, and then you can do it with the bright fire and brimstone as well, and I think both work really well. Cool. All right, we'll go on to the next one. Another old contest entrant. This is a user I wasn't familiar with till I was trolling through the Golden Hats, but that's Engra 1980, and this is almost like a custom chainmail banner here. Really like the style of it. It's absolutely massive. This thing would be a centerpiece on modern Battlefield for sure.
I mean, he's on a pedestal, right?
Yeah, he's got some really wonderful like non-metallic metal type blending on the reds. Really, and the horns on. I just the horns alone. That is a absolutely crazy like blend fade and like perfectly painted like ox horn look.
Yeah, and some really classic lava work as well. And so this is really interesting. So he's worked with, I think this is Russian Alternative. Am I right in saying that?
I think you are. Yeah.
Because the
Yep.
resting on the hammer is either a 90s or a Russian Alternative bit, and I can't remember which. but I just have a feeling that this kind of started life. And then also you look at the aesthetic on the back of his armor and it looks very much like that. But he's on this like basalt pedestal rising out of the lava, which looks sick immediately. And then I think the other thing is, this is the banner style that Hobgrots have with like, we've got chain links of metal, but then he's taken it in a new direction because obviously he's used that as a painted mosaic surface. And I think in and of itself, just the green stuff work to make that happen must be quite impressive. But then, yeah, you look at the horns on the top and you just think that's really naturalistic. Like, it's very impressive freehand, fine. And there's going to be a lot of impressive freehand, let's face it. Like, don't be intimidated if you can't do impressive freehand. I'm going to show you some examples of how to make a cool banner that doesn't require that much talent. But the truth is, this guy does have that talent. And, if you look at even just the blending on the horn coming out of the demon's head itself, that's actually also quite impressive to do that on a flat surface. So, yeah, massive props to him.
Moving on from that to a forum veteran, it's just classic Fugit style, and there's really not much else there. Is that the Man of War bull on the top? Or something close to it. But yeah, he's gone with the classic look that you see in a lot of his range, and his sculpting work is well known. And we'll have some entries that are other people painting his sculpts, but yeah, he's been entering contests for quite some time, and I just thought this one was very iconic of his work, and shows what you can do with just kind of the classic like couple colors, black, red, white, simple, really fun banner topper. Can add a lot of character to it. I really just picked it out because I like that. But yeah, it's a fun piece.
Yeah, and the bronze looks really distinctive in the way that it's been done as well. But this one looks like it stepped straight out of the army book, right? The 1994 army book. This is like raising that to an art form. Yeah, that is classic Fugit. Gotta love a bit of Fugit. You gotta love the users who've been around forever. Speaking of whom,
Ozymandias. So he went through a time where COVID had hit, right? And he put a lot of effort into a couple banners, and I think he's got multiple army blogs on the forum, and each one of them has the kind of staple piece of the banner bearer. One of those is the mentioned Fugit banner bearer sculpt from Admiralty Miniatures, and yeah, Oxy's gone and taken that in a really impressive direction and just gone for Admiral's logo on the banner, which is a fun nod, a good bit of CDO lore right in the miniature. And in classic fashion, he's got the black and white tones, and he's got an eye, because can't get away without all those things. So if you're ever trying to spot a Jack project in a golden hat, you take a look at these, digest it, and you'll probably know exactly which one he painted in any contest from here out. Then his other one is another fun CDO meme that turned into a banner bearer quite early on. And this is the banner of Walhoot from his Northern Dwarves project.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sorry, I just every time, because I've faced this banner over the battlefront, right? Like I have fought that army, and so has Michael. It was the army that he brought to CD Offline when we met up in Belgium, and honestly, the little fella holding it is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. And it, the banner itself is like, it's got all the Jack trademarks. It's got like, two-tone checkerboard and, freehand and runes and like lots of really cool, grim, dark aesthetic. But then also, in terms of a hero in inverted commas holding it, the little fella holding it is just this misshapen freak thing that's like 90% beard, 10% rusted sword. And he's just the most disgusting thing in that army, and I love it, but it makes me a bit sick. I hate him. He looks like a corpse, and that adds joy to it, immense amounts of joy. Yeah, it's a classic. If you don't know what Walhoot is, stick around. It's what if Hashut was a walrus. That's it. That's the whole concept. Copyright Reaver 2022.
Yep, that's the fun of it. Yeah, he's brought in all the staples here. He's got the Walhoot rune that Eddie had drawn up and made into an emoji for the Discord. Yeah, it's got every little fun piece. I will say something understated here. It is not easy to convincingly do skulls in a bunch of different orientations. You always see the front on skull, and that's hard in its own way. That's a harder challenge than it might look in freehand. And there are some like old Castorf banner arts that do just that. And Jack's done it really well here on his own.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say about freehand, as someone who categorically cannot and will never be able to do freehand, the thing that Jack says to me about that, the thing is his freehand is very stylized. It looks painted on, if that makes sense. He doesn't try and make it look as seamless as someone who is, at another level of paint elite would do, right? Although when he does stuff like the Admiralty banner, it does look pretty seamless. This one is much more kind of close down to the ground and gritty. And that's fine. Like, it can look like a drawing. It can look like art. That's what a banner is. A banner is made by people, and lots of banners that people have fought and died under in medieval warfare are very, very highly stylized. So, it doesn't need to be photorealistic to be cool and good. And I think from that perspective, like, banner is a great example of that, because it demonstrates that you don't need to feel self-conscious about your art style. You just need to be persistent, and you don't need to get every line perfectly straight. Or everything need to be symmetrical or whatever, because real banners in the real world don't look like that either. And when it's finished, it will be very clear what it is, and what it is very cool.
Yeah, completely agree. And Jack has done a quickie tutorial on his checkerboarding, which we'll put in the show notes. It'll probably be in the contest inspiration notes as well. But check that out. It's easier than you probably think to get the results he's looking for, at least with how he's laid it out for you. And you could apply that idea to more than just black and white squares in a pattern. So take a look.
Yes. Why don't we start there? For my banners, I've intentionally gone for ways of making a banner that don't put so much pressure on your artistic skill. And there are many ways that you can do this. And, the winner will not be the person with the most photorealistic freehand, right? The winner will be the person who puts up a banner that Chaos Dwarf fans who like the aesthetic look at and say, damn, that's cool. And if we start then at the Hobgoblin end of things with Jack's Hobgoblin Hobgrot conversion, his battle standard bearer for that army is a single Hobgrot with a knife and some light green stuff work to give him a beard and some hair. And, he's got a skull around his neck and stuff. But he's holding aloft. Now, I want to get this right. I'm pretty sure that this piece is actually a Russian alternative piece. So you might not be able to find it specifically. But what it is it's an 8-pointed Chaos Star, just a physical metal one. And it's being held aloft in a green stuffed hand. And then it's got some simple green stuff flames coming off it. And then those flames have been done in a pretty normal green flame kind of shading way. It's got, you could call it OSL, right? It's not like breaking the bank levels of OSL, right? Like he's not like casting some green glow all over everything. But the banner itself, as a concept, it immediately tells you this is a magic artifact. These hobgoblins are like deformed by chaos. They've got this green warp flame coming off it. It's just this giant metal spiked wheel that's being held aloft by one of the heroes in the army. And having seen it in person, like, it's really arresting for that reason, especially because, he's used a vivid bright green that actually isn't reflected in the very muted kind of almost clean Nurgle colours that he's used for the rest of the army. You know, the rest of the army has a lot of rusted blades and a lot of kind of dark, sallow flesh tones and stuff. And again, it's that reminder. I've seen him. There's some photos on the blog for this army where it's riding in the howdah of a big war beast. I think I can't quite remember, but in that context, that green flame reads across the whole army as being really distinctive looking, and that is one of the most important things to do. Is make your banner to some extent either a summary icon of your army's paint scheme, or alternatively make it a really strong counterpoint to that paint scheme so that it stands out across everything else. And I think without breaking the bank in terms of the level of detail, that's what he's done in this piece.
Yeah, I remember that picture specifically in the War Machine, and it is really stands out even amongst a bigger piece. Yeah, I think it's a really good point to bring up, and worth noting that you don't necessarily have to paint your battle standard bearer if that's not what's on your painting table for this contest. It could be just a unit banner bearer, and something that I've done quite a bit is just make it kind of just an icon and find some cool bit, use it. You know, maybe I'll add a little something to it, or find a dangling cloth bit to put beneath it to maybe add a piece of color to that and make it stand out. But yeah, a lot of my unit banner bearers are just like holding a metal totem, and that's pretty much it. So I think, yeah, it's a really good point, and you can do, you know, what Jack's done here, something that really stands out.
And I think, you know, don't feel like by doing that you're like a hack or a cheater, because you're not going to lose anything by doing that. If you have a strong concept and you follow that concept through, then you're going to be in a really good place. So this next one is by Brazen co-host and good personal friend Michael X. Now, this is a paint job of a mini that I own. It is not a conversion. Unfortunately, it's out of production. It is from the Infernal Dwarf range, as it used to be, from a company called Titan Forge, which you may have heard of, which does some very cool Chaos Dwarf stuff. But the reason why I wanted to shine a light on this one is, again, it's super distinctive, this time in a different way. If you've never seen this miniature before, it's a cuneiform set of tablets in the location where you would normally find a fabric banner, right? Now, this is straight off the shelf, right? Michael has painted this, but he's not converted very much about it. And yet it looks really distinctive. Why? Because, again, there's normal, average, everyday, raggedy flag banners. And then there is this one, which is this much dwarfier, much more solid, very physical object that looks like it could crush you if it went in the wrong direction. And it says something about the dwarf that's carrying it, but it also says something extremely dwarfy, or in this case, chaos dwarfy, that carries across the whole army, right? Which is that this is not about fabric. This is about carving runes into stone or into bronze, or however you want to paint it. And again, I just wanted to showcase it because a golden hat entry does not have to be a conversion to win. It has to be cool, right? But then also, I think it's important to play with what a banner is, just like how Jack did with that hobgoblin. There are other ways to play with what a banner is to make it really sing in the Chaos Dwarf aesthetic. I think it's a real shame this miniature's out of production, but there's nothing stopping you from doing something similar with your own conversion if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah, and Michael's gone here and he's done his kind of jade obsidian aesthetic on the bull head, which is a good way of drawing attention to it as well. And that's something he carries through that army he's painted pretty consistently. But I like how it, you know, draws attention, brings your eyes there, and also I like the look of that green amongst the colors he's chosen for his army. But yeah, really like the tablet. It would certainly go well, and Michael's painted these up as the Admiralty relief sculpt plates as well. So it's a fun aesthetic to carry into a model that's actually in your army.
This next one is a little bit out of left field, right, for a Chaos Dwarf army, but go with me here. So this is by an up-and-coming Chaos Dwarfs Online user called Reaver. And what Reaver's done with this regiment, it's actually Skaven slaves. And what he's done, Reaver has no idea that I've put his stuff in here, by the way. It's the banner for it is a lamp that's dangling precariously on the end of a chain, on the end of a stick, above the army. And it's just, there's something very Skaven-y about it, because he's using these Skaven as slaves, right? They're just, they'll be hobgoblin counts as, right? They're just some slaves. But the thing about it that's really distinctive, again, is it's just like, what does a standard mean for this regiment? Well, it's not some noble flag that they flock to. It's just basically a big glowing thing hanging above them that they know how to cluster around it, like the stinking vermin that they are. And I think as well, again, it's got that little subtle touch of like, there's a very distinctive hard yellow color coming out of that, surrounded by metal, on a regiment that's mostly flesh tone and fur tone. And again, it's just a reminder that like context for a banner, making a banner look good, could do real wonders for it. And of course, you're going to want to submit a golden hat picture of your model in detail up close, right? But you're also going to want to submit maybe some photos of it alongside other things to demonstrate both size and scale, but then also if you want to tell a visual story with it, if you want to demonstrate color, then adding counterpoints around it can really help. And so this is one of my favorite things that you've done, Riva.
It's such a random pull. Never would have expected that. That was probably my second unit ever posted to Chaos Dwarfs Online. Very controversial. Started off with a contest entry and then straight to the rats. That's what I had on my desk. Pretty funny.
Yeah, I thought I would pick something. You might want to pick a different photo for it because it's quite hard to see it from that angle, maybe. But like, I figured you would know best where to get photos like that.
I do like that unit a lot, though.
Yeah, well, it's chaos, and I think one of the things that's good about your regiments is that you attack them from the perspective of let's make this heap of people a fucking mess, right? It's just anarchy, and this is one of the most exhausting regiments to look at. If you think about the sheer amount of it, the sheer amount that's just going on inside it at all times is excellent, absolutely excellent. So this next one is by one of the CDO users whose work I've really enjoyed following over the years. So his name is Reaver. And this one is actually, I've decided to take the work in progress for it because since this is Bitz and Shits, I wanted to make a point of demonstrating the conversion work that goes into it. Now, some aspects of this are very simple, right? Because it's predominantly pieces, right? There's quite a lot of GW plastic in here. There's some classic Forge World resin components. There's a metal big hat sticking out the top of it. And then there's a lot of green stuff work to bind it all together. But I wanted to show it without the paint job because I wanted to make a point of the fact that like the investment in this miniature isn't in a giant banner. The investment is in the character themselves and the sheer level of like Chaos Dwarf complexity that they've got that makes them look distinctive. And it has every Chaos Dwarf collector's favorite bit, which is of course the pipe. The pipe is one of the great gifts that Games Workshop gave with the Tamakan range. And it appears in my army, it appears in every army, and my personal opinion is that the pipe should almost never appear where you expect it to. It's a Demon Smith piece. It's in my case, it's being held by my Infernal Guard Castellan, who's in bronze, like bright gold armor. And of course, Infernal Guard have their faces nailed shut. So it raises the question of how on earth does he smoke it? But it doesn't matter because he's got it. So it's clearly his. But yeah, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about this one and also potentially where you ended up painting it, Reaver, just because again, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, this was another early-ish Kit Bash idea, but it really just was born of spare artillery crew for the most part, but I'll be the only idiot on the forum who has that specific pipe in a left hand. And that is why you see some green stuff on the pinky, is because I had the crew member calling with his hand up to his face, and that was inseparable without resculpting face. So I ended up having to switch the pipe to the other hand in order to make this work, and it was the biggest pain I probably ever had to execute. But worth it, I suppose. But either way, this was a fun kit bash. The banner itself is from a 40k piece, actually. It's a 40k backpack. So you can definitely source things kind of everywhere. But one of those Chaos Space Marine Lords, I believe, that came out in that era. Lord Discordant, I think. Yeah, fun piece. Fugit Khan hat. It's one of those little Easter egg minis, but he ended up being kind of the demon smith that shepherds along a future unit of familiars, although at the time he had no idea what he was going to be subject to. He just kind of was a piece I had, and later he got shoehorned in. So, yeah.
Well, who knows what he's smoking in that pipe, right? He probably has no idea what day it is. Yeah, so I'm going to stop embarrassing Reva now with just posting stuff, but I think it's fun because I wanted to trawl the archive for my contribution to this, since I'm clinically incapable of doing good work of that nature. My banners are just red, and then I dry brush them red. So what I wanted to show in this next one is, again, just a showcase of some simple things, but I think that demonstrates some charm. So this next one is by Zanko, again, a veteran of this forum. And one of the things I wanted to point out about this one is that this is part of a kind of species of banner that has kind of fallen out of favor among hobbyists, but is actually really important and valuable. And this is a paper banner. And, you know, some people treat paper banner as a start point for freehand. Some people treat paper banners as an opportunity to pre-print something. And some people land somewhere in between. You know, they might start with a printable template and then they embellish it. And I just wanted to act, you know, as a reminder, there's nothing preventing you from creating a beautiful piece of digital art and then printing that, you know, on a useful medium, whether that's direct paper, probably not, but it could be. And then simply attaching that to your hero and having it stand over your army looking really distinctive. And that's exactly what Zanko's done here. And I think it's something that was very common in the 90s, both for freehand and for printed versions. And I think people shouldn't be afraid to bring it back because, you know, it can allow you to showcase a different skill than the kind that other people are competing with, but then equally it can allow you to act with some real precision. And so this is heavily customized, right? The piece of art that he's printed has got the debased corn rune that's been turned into the Hashut rune in it. And it's got like this really evocative ziggurat that pretty much nobody could freehand. And then it's got this really lovely lava texture, and I just thought it was a cool expression of the paper banner technique, which is you know, to which we owe so much in the hobby.
Yeah, and there's still some people that are doing it. We've seen some recently from Besron as well, and I believe I can share in the show notes. He's got at least some whip pictures that show how he's done it, and yeah, I mean, we've seen these in Golden Hats. We also have a full archive of the fully colorized versions of old banners from the 80s and 90s, and then also other CDO users have been kind enough to strip those into the black and white and share those as well. So we have any of those different iterations along the way. So I think, yeah, there's lots of opportunity there, and you could do a really nice job with a good paper banner. Maybe you just want to put a lot of effort into the model itself and do some conversion work, and you know, you can spend your time however you'd like. But I think we have plenty of great examples of good paper banners being fun focal pieces in the army. So
this next one comes from the distant past. This is a guy called the Hooded Man. That's his user handle. I don't know him at all. I doubt he's listening to this. He was posting years and years and years and years ago. But this mini is still out there somewhere. It's a very cool Infernal Guard era, 8th edition Chaos Dwarf banner. It's a modest kit bash in that banner does not come from the Chaos Dwarfs range, but then it's topped with the Chaos Dwarf giant metal bullhead. And I wanted to call attention to this one because it's very simple. It's very clean. It has some like gentle, unchallenging freehand around the sun, the black sun symbol. But that big dominating bullhead, he's slightly converted the horns. He's turned one of the horns to make it have a little bit more distinctive edge. But the metals on it are really nicely corroded. And so the whole thing just has this incredible Hashut clarity to it that makes it simple but really quite enjoyable. And it's just a demonstration of how quickly and efficiently you could use your existing skills to make something that looks distinctive and definitely, earns its place among the other entries, without necessarily needing to watch 10 tutorials and do 10 hours of work, right? Like, this is just a simple, clean, wonderful expression of the Chaos Dwarf aesthetic. And I thought it was worth appreciating it for that reason.
Yeah, I was wondering about the turned horn myself. I was like, am I having one of those like Berenstein Bears situations? Like, has that always been like that? Or yeah,
No, it's a very fragile piece of resin, I would say. He may very well have fixed it, but it looks more like he's cut it cleanly and then rotated it just for fun.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, like the banner, fun kind of like Dark Souls Eclipse kind of look on it. But yeah, fun piece. There's plenty of inspiration like this on the forum, and we'll post all the Golden Hat archives as well. But yeah, it's not always easiest to find, but if you willing to do some fun scrolling, there's quite a bit out there. This is a good find.
So this next one is by an old forum user called Red Skulls, and again, it's many, many, many years old, from before we migrated to Discourse. And this one I wanted to call attention to because it's a reminder of how wonderful the 90s aesthetic is. Now, you guys will know that Creative Assembly came to Chaos Dwarfs Online when they were working on the Chaos Dwarfs DLC, and one of the things that I think, to be honest, Reva, you and I bear a little bit of responsibility for. We shilled pretty hard on the old podcast that it turned out they were listening to, that like they shouldn't abandon the 90s stuff. They should just mix it in and give us both. And that's exactly what they chose to do. And one of the things they chose to do was they also chose to reproduce the exact banner art from the 90s army book with the kind of half-cut skull with the burning lightning bolts coming out the top. And I wanted to share this banner because this is a really wonderful demonstration of how vivid that 90s color palette is. And blue is a controversial topic among Chaos Dwarfs collectors. Some Chaos Dwarfs collectors love it. Some use it sparingly. Others turn away from it instinctively. And this is a model that's used a lot of blue, but then has contrasted it very strongly with a lot of red. And he simply freehand reproduced that 90s look on a more modern, larger scale banner. And it looks really wonderful. And I think it, got a ton of votes at the time for that very simple reason. And again, it's a demonstration of the fact that you don't have to have like the world's most original idea, right? You can take something that's core and integral to the Chaos Dwarf aesthetic of whatever era, and you can simply do your own beautiful cover version of that. And people love it when you play the hits, and that's what I think this is. I think he's played the hits here.
Yeah, I agree. The blue, I've run the whole circle on blue myself. Like, I never saw myself using it. Then, just started to introduce it in small ways, and then like now I'm like full on. Like they did the great thing with Zatan in Total War, where he even had like the blue quilt color. Anyway, it's really well done here, and it shows like kind of the fade in the background and like the different like tones on the hat that you can really bring blue in, and this doesn't feel like it's just the primary colors red, yellow, and blue with the way he's painted it. And so you can absolutely do it incredibly successfully like this. And I think it brings a fun character, whether or not it's tied into the rest of your army or not. You could have it as a kind of a standout thing that you only apply to the banner. But yeah, I like how he's tied it into the rest of the model as well.
That yellow is all glow, isn't it? Yeah, my Infernal Guard are blue. I only have Fireglaves. My intention is to do hand weapon and shield or great weapon as red. And it makes them, yeah, they're dark blue. They're kind of like Night Lordsy looking, but with more bronze and brass. And I love it. But I do also love it primarily as a counterpoint because it makes it clear that they stand apart from the rest of the army, which I like for an Infernal Guard. But the key thing is just be vivid. Do you know what I mean? But you don't need to do you don't need to create your own Mona Lisa. You really can go back to Chaos Dwarf heritage and give us that because that's what we all like. And if we look at this last one, and this is the last one, I just wanted to make one last point about like unconventional banner formats, right? So this is by a guy, a user called Hillbilly Bub. And I don't know what happened to Bub, but I assume he's out there in Appalachia right now, running his whiskey still and thinking about when he used to enter Golden Hats. What he's done is he's taken the Hachette rune, and whether it's plasticard or like sheet brass, I actually can't tell. I assume it's painted plasticard, but you could do this with metal if you had the skills. I know Michael's got the skills to do something like that. And it's a big physical metal rune. And other than that, he's done a very minimal job on a classic 90s metal Chaos Dwarf. He's added a shield. He's kept the banner poles because they fit with it, because it's metal. But again, it just sends that really clear message that, like, you know, with a Stanley knife and a ruler and a pencil, you know what I mean? He has created very, very quickly something that looks both super on theme, but then also like really distinctive and really stands out. And I think that's really good because I think, you know, unconventional banner types and formats are something that you can be creative with. But you can also just use it to send a giant Chaos Dwarf message. Do you know what I mean? To just be like, Hachette's my guy. And that's exactly what this one has done. And I just think it's a fun concept. And again, a demonstration that you can do something simple with your one miniature that you create like this, and it will stand out and people will remember it. And that's the joy of this one.
Yeah, I like the idea. And I think it's worth mentioning that I feel like as Chaos Dwarfs, we have a very unique opportunity that, like, back banners are very common, even amongst standard offerings. So you don't have to find a model in your collection, buy a new model that's, you know, got a suitable holding a spear, holding a long stick kind of feel. You could go for nearly anything and just find a way to make a fun backpack and attach a back banner and work with it that way. And it could be just as iconic and in some ways sometimes more iconic for a Chaos Dwarf model. But I like that. Obviously the one you showed of mine used that to my advantage, so it's certainly something not to be discredited. You really can kind of pick and choose whatever model you want and turn it into a banner bearer and not have to occupy one of the valuable hands where you could be holding two-handed weapon or, you know, other things or fun accessories. You can really make a model have a little bit of story to it when you don't have to use up one of those hands for a banner. So yeah, I like
You've done some really other distinctive ones. Just thinking about the 3D physical banners, you could tell us a little bit about, the Arcanauts, the heavily converted Caradron boat people with the giant metal squid banner. I think that bears sharing with the people because, again, that is a non-fabric, entirely physical banner. How did that one come together?
Yeah, so I've had Black Art Corsairs bits predating any time I collected Chaos Dwarfs. So that bit has been kicking around for quite some time. Obviously, there's the Black Kraken motif from Dreadfleet. So that's kind of where the idea came about. And then I just kind of latched onto it, and I think it's an upside down miner's pickaxe with a little bit of embellishment to make it look like an anchor, but it's pretty much just two pieces combined with like a tiny amount of green stuff. And then I think those are like watch pieces that I glued on for the eyes to get rid of the kind of frowny dark elf looking eyes that were on the thing originally, give it a tiny mechanical look. But
they look mad.
Couple fun pieces, and wanted to make it, I kind of went the opposite way and made it stand out by virtue of making it darker than everything else. But this was one of my first ever contest entries. So
this is going to come up again when we talk about junk builds, isn't it? I can feel it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, watch pieces is a staple for sure. It's probably more than one of my banners is made up of things like that. Gears, you can always just go pillaging for gears. It's very easy to just
Stop it, Reaver! You're ruining that episode. You've just done the entire episode in 2 sentences. We don't need to do it anymore. We're not going to get any clicks. Just take a hammer to a watch and then stick everything together afterward.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess my overall message, just through all the examples that I've thrown out there, is like, I think there are tons of things you could do, and many of them are actually really easy to get finished in a couple of days, or by doing a digital art project, by diving in your Bitz box, by just thinking about simple green stuff to add some flames to something, or buying a piece and just painting that piece and having it be a distinctive piece, right? Like, one last thing that I'll shill for. It's hard to find them, but if you know the internet, it's easy to find them for cheap now. Minotaurs, Space Marine, bits and components. If you had ambition, and if I was going to do this, but I'm not because I can't because of where I live, you could take like the Minotaurs chapter Rhino doors or Land Raider doors that Forge World used to sell, and that you can therefore get from disreputable places that sell Forge World products to this day. You could just trim that up, and you've got an amazing bull's head right there that looks really cool and quite Bronze Agey. Just a thought off the top of the head. Because I've got a spare one of those, but sadly I don't have any talent, so I won't be doing that because I don't enter contests. Anyway, so those are the things we wanted to show you and share with you ahead of what happens next. But there's lots of other resources, right? There's lots of the things that we've spoken about already. But there's also STLs. Is it worth talking about Hot Stuff's work for the forum, Jared?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this, I believe his work is, within the last couple of years, he's gone and digitally recreated those old iconic Chaos Dwarf banner arts on 3-dimensional flowing banners. So taking the paper banner idea and making it a printable, substantial enough piece. And I believe he's just kind of sized the loops on the end for brass rod or something of that sort. So you really can, cut out the freehand, if you will, and have a printed banner. We've definitely seen those cropping up on the forum. We've actually had them as prizes in past contests. They look great. They have the relief details of the art of your choice. So credit to Hot Stuff for going out and doing all the work to create every iteration of banner you could possibly want for all different units.
Yeah, and if you can't find them on the forum, do just search for Hot Stuff and then browse his things, because that's his big thread. If you go to his user profile, Hot Stuff, all one word, you will find very quickly what we're talking about. And it's just a hugely valuable resource because it allows you to click your fingers and do something that looks 90s. Are there any other tutorials that we wanted to mention to people if they're, thinking about entering but not 100% sure they can execute on the idea they've had?
I think that's mostly it. I will, we'll share some stuff in the show notes, and there'll be plenty in the contest thread, whatever I may find between now and when that goes live. There is some of the things we've mentioned, like Jack's checkerboarding and some posts from Bessron on paper banners. So we'll have that all available. Certainly anybody who's at all interested, we do have a painting tutorial section that, always looking for people to share how their process works and how they do things, so everybody else can learn from it. But yeah, I think that's
one thing we should mention, actually, especially for first-time contest entrants, is your very good tutorial on miniatures photography. And I know that Jack's done something similar, and I think Michael's done something similar. Taking a good picture of your model is a really important final step if you want to be proud of what you've got and show your work at its best. And there's some really good forum tutorials about how to photograph your minis so that they look really cool. And I think it does make a difference to the final result. I think it's fair to say, right?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, my shameless copying of Michael, who shamelessly copied Eddie, I think is where this all precipitated. But yeah, tutorial for black backgrounds, we'll link that as well. It doesn't really cover white backgrounds specifically, but a lot of the principles will be the same. I just need to get a suitable background.
Awesome. Well, in that case, I think that's everything. So I hope you're excited for this contest. I know that we all are, as always. We'll be posting this one up around the place. We'll use the Facebook group, we'll use the Discord and whatever. And it's always fun to pop into Discord and tease people with what you're making, but don't show them. So if you ever want to join a hobby hangout or just jump on voice chat to talk to other hobbyists, have a look. We've got a bit of a schedule going, but you can also just jump into the voice channel when you're bored and listening to audiobooks, and you never know which Chaos Dwarf fan might pop into the chat with you. And yeah, best of luck with the contest. And if you're listening to this after the contest has closed, because what is it, summer 2024 right now, if you're listening to this and it's not that time, then everyone needs a battle standard bearer. And everyone's battle standard in the old world is the same thing. It's always the Lamasu's beard, because it's an amazing standard and it's the only Chaos Dwarf distinctive one. So my personal vote is going to go to whoever creates a standard that has a cut off Lamasu's beard in it, which I think would look pretty cool. So that's my big tip. Any final big tip from you, Reva?
That's a good shout out. I think it'd be really fun to see some cleverly done, like Lamasu's head or Lamasu's beard on a stick. That yeah, I feel like we will see one. So yeah, I guess worth noting. You get one free vote from Chitz.
Whether we do or not, we deserve to see it, because everyone's bloody taking them in their armies.
Yeah. So in terms of other tips, yeah, I think the biggest thing is always just scroll through the Bitz box, see what you find. There's also lots of other two-dimensional inspiration on the forum that I don't think we've mentioned. So yeah, cruise through the background art section if you're not sure, or maybe you're not interested in the Chaos Dwarf banner art and you like to do something a bit more original, don't have an idea. Yeah, just scroll through the 2D art section. It's something I've done in the past when I just had a banner in a unit, just went and found something that fit my theme and just tried to go about painting some rendition of that. So yeah, there's plenty of inspiration on the forum. So cruise through it, you'll find something, and credit the person or you found that. But yeah, looking forward to seeing lots of fun entries, and big thanks to Red Bard, War Colors, and all prior contest prize donors. So keeps the forum running. I think with that, we'll close it out here.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening.
Excellent. Bye everyone. We'll see you soon.